Namaskar and welcome to Samvad. Today, the guest on Samvad is Lieutenant General Shokin Chauhan, former DG Assam Rifles, and we are discussing the strategic anatomy of Pakistan as a war producing state through his recently published book, The Jihad Tech Complex. So, welcome to Samvad and many congratulations on your book.
Thank you very much.
So, for
Nice to be with you, Mayank. Always a pleasure.
and
Uh,
always an honor for me, sir.
you take such wonderful questions, and I am grateful and honored that you have decided to talk on my book,
So,
which to me is an extremely important frame on which we can start, looking at Pakistan. It's a very important thing.
yes, sir. Sir, I'll start off with the title itself. For a casual observer, Jihad Tech Complex appears as an oxymoron. We associate jihadi activities as something driven purely by ideologically motivated actors who are generally not identified with technology. So I would request you to make us understand as to what made you decide for this title.
See, Mayank, what actually happened was that, you're aware I have been serving in Kashmir for the last almost 18 years of my service career in various ranks, from a captain to a major to a lieutenant colonel to a colonel, as a commanding officer, as a brigade commander, and finally as a divisional commander. So at each point of the time when we went to Kashmir, we started with 1983 when I was a young captain. In 84, I was on the Siachen Glacier. We saw the deterioration of what was happening in the fabric of the Kashmiri society. And that was an important thing to see. And you could make out how the ideology of the people of J&K, one part of the population of the people of J&K, was being radicalized. And when we went back in 1989, I remember 1983 to 86, we were in Uri. At that time, things were okay, but there was a particular film that had come out. It was it was an important film about Mustafa, the Islamic commander who beat the Western powers. And that resonated with the people. And that was for the first time we saw in the cinema halls in Srinagar in 85, 86, that there was anger on the streets and there was talk of jihad and there was talk of azadi, which was which was never there before. So from 86 to 89, we could observe the deterioration that started. Later, I went back to Kashmir in 1991, as the brigade major. And at that time, I could see that the same population had not only become radicalized, but also had got weapons with them, also had certain sections had got training with them. And that made a very large difference to the way they used to look at us. And that is what I, decided that from that time onwards, I used to keep a diary and I used to observe the changes that were happening. And from that time onwards, every 3 to 5 years, I would go back to Kashmir in a different rank. And I could see how technology was now changing their capability to fight. At that time, it was the JKLF in 89, 1991. It was the JKLF, and they weren't that radicalized. They had weapons, but they were not that radicalized. Subsequently, you had the Hizbul Mujahideen that came in. Then you had different groups, the Huji, the Jaish-e-Mohammed, the Lashkar-e-Toiba, all different groups started coming in with better and better training capabilities, better weapons. They started using radio sets that you could not track. They started meaning getting equipment that you could not track. And when I went back as a brigade commander in 2007, I was a brigade commander in Shopian, Pulwama, Kulwa, and Kulgam. At that time, things had changed totally. Not only did they have radio sets that were frequency hopping radio sets, they had different technologies. They had better mobile sets. They were able to change their mobile sets. They were able to get SIMs that you could not track. They were using satellite phones. So at each level, when you realize that there was some technology there, and how were these people whom they said was, were cannon fodder, were trained in madrasas, how were they dealing with all this technologies? Someone was pulling the strings, someone was training and teaching them how to use this equipment. And that is what used to be always in my head, that this Hydra of Pakistan and the ISI, and how is it manipulating so many people? And that's why I wrote this book, really, to show the movement of this insurgency, which turned into terrorism, which turned into Pakistan using a certain section of its society. And what the Pakistan army did, which is a very interesting factor, is that they fused ideology with technology. They started teaching them in their madrasas technology, coding, use of computers. So now you had an ideology filled with hatred along with a technological training. And he became a combination that was very difficult to defeat. Because how can you defeat ideology? But oftentimes when we talk of our friends, and we talk of the current leadership, and we seem to dismiss Pakistan as not so important as China being the larger enemy here. But I think that's not going to be the case. I think Pakistan is going to continue to be mainstream for us, mainstream as an enemy, mainstream a as a neighbor who is going to continue to try and defeat us at every point. Because they have fused this technology, they have fused the ideology. You will have an endless weapon of this fused jihadi of technology. And that's why I called it the Jihad Technical Complex. Because it's a complex. No? It's a training ground. So after Sindoor, when we hit them, when we hit the uh, the home of Mulana, of the Jaish founder, we realized that it's not going to affect. It's not affected anything. They're still there. They're still coming in. They're still killing people. So we need to realize the radicalized population that is there. We need to prevent that radicalization to come into in our country. We need to train our own people to deal with this fused mechanism of jihadi. And my idea was to show a torch onto all the aspects that are there as far as the Pakistan army is concerned.
Sir, going through your book, one understands that it is not an unstable country struggling towards normalcy, but a system that has learned to survive through instability itself. Now, Pakistan has institutionalized crisis as a policy and converted conflict into renewable national resources. My,
Absolutely.
sir, my
That's a
question is,
very
what made Pakistan's military establishment shift from managing instability as a problem to weaponizing it as a solution?
exactly my uncle. You know, declarations, mobilization orders, or clearly demarcated battlefields. It unfolds incrementally, Mayank, through narrative, cyber violence, diplomatic maneuver, sustained ambiguity. So our engagement with Pakistan is not, I mean, the Pakistani engagement with us, as far as this is concerned, is not fully visible. It's not acknowledged. And yet it remains persistent and consequential to us. And it will remain consequential to us. And that's why it's an important aspect. It's an uncomfortable but necessary truth, Mayank, that Pakistan's confrontation with India has ceased to be episodic and reactive. They have matured the system of continuous pressure. It's ideological, it's technological, it's physiological, it's psychological, it's deniable. It's not designed for decisive military victory, but designed for prolonged strategic relevance.
So have they designed the
That's been important.
organization? Have they made organizational and doctrinal changes to be a systemic sort of a event rather than a one-off thing?
It's not a one-off thing at all.
So have they redesigned their organizational and doctrinal?
Absolutely, absolutely. What they've done is this fusion that has taken place, Mayank, which is very important for us to understand, that it shows the world that it is in a state of conflict. It shows the world that it is in a state of breaking down. It shows the world a different picture, but in reality, it is using this conflict within itself, is using this instability within itself to continuously fuel this anger, continuously continue this war against us, and to continuously fuse this jihad idea into their head. And not only that, it continues to, train people, train its entire population to continue its fight against us. That's my argument in the book.
Sir, listening to you, I get a feel that this Pakistani army, the Pakistan, which is the Pakistani state itself, it relishes this instability and converts adversity into opportunity, even at the cost of forsaking their own national security and stability. So, does this make Pakistan a very dangerous adversary, which we have not been able to understand even clearly, very clearly till now?
Absolutely. Mayank, let's go to the first chapter of my book. It is called Pakistan's Unwinnable Geography. Now, what do I say there? I talk about Pakistan being an illegitimate state. Now, why do I say this? Pakistan was created with no natural barriers. Nations by, regular nations, old nations, nations with history, always have a divided, clearly demarcated barrier between yourself and the other nation. In Pakistan's case, it is between two illegal lines. That's an important factor for us to understand. With India, it is the line of control, entirely illegal, because Jammu and Kashmir, the state of Jammu and Kashmir, in entirety belongs to India. And they have created this illegal, irregular line of control. It is not based on geographical realities. It is not based on any kind of known barriers, known rivers, known obstacles, but instead, just in many places, just plain ground. And on the other side, with Afghanistan, it is based on the Durand line, which has divided the Pashtuns, which is again an illegal line. And whether or anything, the Durand line has run its course. The British, in their ill-designed wisdom, decided to divide the Pashtuns. Have been Pashtuns for 5,000 years. They're not going to be divided. Afghanistan does not accept this line. So Pakistan's neighbors, Afghanistan and India, do not accept the lines on which Pakistan was created. And because it is within these two illegal spaces with no water, no capability of water for itself, it is a continued state that has a great deal of insecurity. And this insecurity is what the army, Pakistan army, uses to fuel hatred of its population. And this is what the main thing has always been, the hatred of this population. So Pakistan's geography, as I have argued in my first chapter, is both a burden and a bargaining chip. And you spoke of insecurity, or produces insecurity internally, yet it leverages this externally. This duality explains much of Pakistan's ability to survive international isolation, internal dysfunction, and repeated strategic setbacks. It also explains predictions of Pakistan's imminent collapse have consistently proven premature. We keep saying Pakistan girne wala hai. It's not going to fall because it has created this instability to gain for itself. The army has created this instability within Pakistan to gain for itself an illegitimate control on power. Today, you just see the situation today. There are riots in the POK. They've conducted elections.
Hmm.
There is a full-scale insurrection in Balochistan. Soon, Gilgit-Baltistan will also do the same thing. The Pashtuns are anyway in a problem with them. So the core states of Pakistan are Punjab, Sindh. That's it. Where there is less or little violence. So they have created this violence to keep this insecurity, to keep themselves in power throughout. That is my main contention, man.
Sir, but despite all this struggle, all these strives, sir, I mean, you spoke of Pakistan occupied Kashmir, Gilgit Baltistan about to explode, Baluchistan, the Pashtuns. Field Marshal Munir is a man of peace, or so Donald Trump calls him. So, is he also utilizing this instability to sell Pakistan outside and make it strong?
Pakistan will remain what it is. It sells a camera, it sells anything to be accepted anywhere. They used to say, if you remember, the three A's of Pakistan: Allah, America, and the yeah,
Armies.
army. So these three A's are, keep moving from one point to the other. So 1A, the army, has continued to dominate this issue of Pakistan. And what has the army done? It uses Allah in the form of religion, and it uses America for this continued capability to be visible and to be relevant. So these three A's are the basis on which we must look at Pakistan. It has now one C, that is China. It has convinced China that it is a willing pawn to keep bringing India down. If Pakistan continues to engage us on our western border, continues to send this low level of terrorism inside our country, we will continue to be employed. We'll continue to be fighting them. We'll continue to be wasting resources. And that is what China wants. China is not doing anything visibly, physically themselves. Their northern borders or their Tibetan borders are absolutely secure. They know that India is not doing anything to them. They know that we are not trying to create any problem within their own restive Tibetan population. But they are happy that Pakistan is keeping us employed. And to keep that happiness, they are giving Pakistan money, and Pakistan is a willing tool. So Pakistan will continue to play this game with anybody, with any American president that comes, whether he is from the Democrats or whether he is from the Republican. The establishment in America feels that Pakistan is a client state that can be used. And because it can be used, they'll continue to use it, whether to help it or establish bases when they were in Afghanistan, whether to counter Russia, and any other reason. Realistically, here's a piece of real estate that by which you can, create problems anywhere. And China also does the same. That's why you find this relevance of Pakistan. It is today relevant. If you saw in Op Sindoor, Turkey came out in open support to Pakistan. The Gulf came out in open support to Pakistan. Azerbaijan came out in open support to Pakistan. China came out in open support to Pakistan. Donald Trump came out in open support to Pakistan. Right? You saw it. We saw it. And you saw that they were willing to give weapons to Pakistan. They were helping with establishing that fake narrative of Pakistan. So we have to be absolutely clear that here was a state we thought was unstable and about to fall. But in reality, it uses this instability to continue and fuel its episodic issues with India.
So your book traces how Pakistan's military establishment has fused ideology, irregular warfare, and technology in a coherent doctrine of continuous conflict.
Yes.
It began as a proxy jihad in Kashmir. It has evolved into a far more sophisticated architecture right now. It
Absolutely.
integrates cyber operations, disinformation campaigns, autonomous systems, economic manipulation, and diplomatic theater.
Yes.
Violence, as you have been saying, is no longer episodic, it is ambient. War is no longer
Yeah.
being declared, it is being rehearsed across
Yeah.
domains. So I'm
And
sure this,
that, mm,
sir,
yes,
please
yes.
go ahead. I'm sure this requires multiple domains. So how does Pakistan do all this together? And despite all the instability, it is still able to do that. So how is it able to manage all these domains and bring them together?
That's exactly the issue, man. They have money coming in from China. They have money coming in from Turkey. They have they have a great amount of money coming in from Saudi Arabia. They have defense pacts with Saudi Arabia, with Kuwait, with all these countries. So somebody is funding them. Their army is about 6.5 lakhs, but they have maybe 12 to 20 lakh more irregulars who have been fused with this ideology of hatred and who have been given technological capabilities. So when you look at the Pakistan army, don't only look at the 6.5 lakhs of soldiers. You have to look at the 20 lakh more people who are being used by Pakistan to fuel this hatred against us. And when you say, how are they doing it? It's because they're getting money. They're not a poor nation. The people might be poor. The nation is not. You saw they were in the state of almost, defaulting to the IMF. Who gave them money? And now they have so much money, there's absolutely no problem. So all the issues that we look at a failed state, they put them there and said, look, we're a failed state, you must give us money. Look, we've got nuclear weapons, you must give us money. Look, we'll share this issue with you, you must give us money. And they're getting money from all over the place. And who are they using against? They're using it against us. They're using it to fuel the instability within our country. They're using it to fuel this terrorism. And they're using it to develop and enrich themselves.
Hmm.
The core states, as I said, the core states are Punjab and Sindh, and maybe a part of their Gujarat. That's all. But
Hmm.
the core remains rich when the people are poor. And that is why you have these insurrections.
Hmm.
The people of POK are openly rising against them. The people of Balochistan are openly are rising against them. But it makes no difference to them
Hmm.
because it only gives them greater power. The other day, there was a talk that there will be a coup in Pakistan. Munir doesn't need a coup. He's as it is, the field marshal. He doesn't need a coup. So that's the issue about why I wrote this, is this issue that I wanted to bring to focus, that Pakistan moved from Khaki to Kalashnikov in my fourth chapter. This is my most personal chapter because it is rooted in what I witnessed directly and what I spoke about in the beginning. Because I saw the moment when war with Pakistan started changing its clothing. Uh, I traced how Pakistan learned to fight without wearing its uniform, how soldiers became terrorists by design, how deniability replaced deterrence, how expendability, and that's important, that expendability became doctrine. So from Anantnag to Doda to Kargil to Pulwama, where all I served, I saw this evolution unfold in blood. And that's an important issue that I wanted to show that jihad with Pakistan, Pakistan's mind, the jihad is not an aberration. It's a method refined patiently and institutionalized deliberately.
So, but this weaponization of instability and integration of these varied domains are bound to have fault lines. It cannot be the case that they don't have fault lines. So, do you see any blind spots in this multi-domain structure that the adversaries could potentially exploit?
Who are the adversaries here?
So the biggest is India, obviously.
We are hedged in between two different geographies. We, in our mind, have said China is the larger power and China is the larger problem for us. We sometimes have taken our eyes off Pakistan. India is also trying to grow itself. We want to be a world power. We don't want to get stuck in South Asia. We want to be a country that improves the lives of our people. Economically, we want to improve. So for us, while Pakistan can, put 10%, 20% of our GDP for weapon systems and technology, we are only putting 2.5% because we want to put it all in the development of our people. And we are trying our best in whatever way to help bring up our people. So our eyes are off a war. We don't want a war. We're not looking at breaking Pakistan further. So that's the issue. That is why India is not going to use Pakistan's vulnerabilities. Of course, there are vulnerabilities. But what will you use? Can you cross into Pakistan and break up Pakistan further? No. We keep saying that its internal dissonance is so much that it'll break up on its own. But the world is not going to allow this breaking up. Somewhere or the other, Pakistan will get support. 2 years ago, we never thought when we reacted to Pakistan's terrorist attack in Pahalgam that America would help in the way they did. We never thought that they would get $10 billion bridge loan to, to bypass the IMF loan that they were defaulting on. But they got. Not only that, they got $20 more billion. And they're happy with all this thing that is coming because it just shows that there is relevance in the world for them. Today, they are the messengers of peace between America and Iran. That means there's relevance somewhere. Whether we are reading Pakistan wrong or our thought process of Pakistan being in a state that is on the state of default is absolutely wrong. It's a self-created state of default. And in one of my chapters, Mayak, I have talked of, the deep state strategic vision, where I have linked this crisis to crisis, where people say Pakistan is drifting from crisis to crisis. It is not like that. It is only rehearsing. The chapter shows the apparent contradictions that are often tactical adjustments, not strategic rehearsals. And that's an important factor that in every place, in chapter 9, I talk of China, the mentor, the supplier, the strategic enabler. That was necessary to correct a dangerous illusion that Pakistan operates alone. And this chapter of mine, chapter 9, actually explains how Chinese patronage sustains Pakistan's instability. It converts the crisis into a leverage and embeds Pakistan within a larger strategic contest aimed at India. And you talk of internal war. Pakistan's internal war, in chapter 10, I wrote it because there is no war doctrine that can be understood without examining economics and demography. Pakistan, not just a war fighting state, it's a war economy. Instability feeds survival, crisis generates revenue. And that is why Pakistan has resisted reform. And that is why peace to Pakistan is structurally threatening. You
But,
cannot have peace.
sir, but you also warn through the book that misreading Pakistan and treating it as a fragile state rather than a crisis erupted one could trigger an even bigger crisis. So does this require, so this is my final question, sir. Does this require a change in approach from India towards Pakistan also?
Absolutely. In chapter 10, I've talked about counter strategy. And I keep saying this, where I confront these hard questions about readiness, adaptation, and danger of applying yesterday's doctrines to tomorrow's war. And towards the end of the book, in chapter 15, I talk of the next war, the silent storm. It's not a prophecy, Mayank.
Hmm.
I have mapped patterns rather than dates. The next conflict will not announce itself. It will seep slowly into our consciousness. I have examined international alliances. I've examined technological horizons. I've examined the systemic risks before returning to the central truth that I believe deeply. Pakistan's greatest war is not against us. It is against the contradictions embedded in its own design. This progression, Mayank, is deliberate and personal. Geography is shaped insecurity. Insecurity hollowed legitimacy. Legitimacy empowered the military. The military weaponized the ideology. And ideology fused with technology, and technology now shapes the future of conflict. That's the main thing that I talk about, man, throughout.
Sir.
And I've gone from point to point to point to point explaining why we are misreading Pakistan. Why, to my mind, personally, China is a large country, but it's not an enemy. Because China itself, if you see China's growth pattern, it's looking to be a superpower. And a superpower does not fight wars, it grows. Superpower reduces the power of other powers in its neighborhood, like what America has done to the entire Pacific area, entire South America, and all the other countries are pygmies in front of the United States of America. China is doing exactly that. She's going to develop, and she's now counted as one of the two superpowers of the world. But for that superpower to remain a superpower, she does not want a competitor within Asia. And if you look at the geography of Asia, there's only one country that can counter it, both in terms of geography, both in terms of population, both in terms of capabilities, both in terms of technology. It's only India. So this is the best way to keep India engaged in a continuous battle with Pakistan. Pakistan is a client state, but it willingly is a client state. But it's not going to break up. It's not going to do anything. It's going to continuously use this crisis, systematically use crisis to crisis. And these are not crises they haven't foreseen. The Pakistan army uses this crisis to get more power for itself, get more money for itself, get more relevance for itself. It sells the crisis. That is what I wanted to say.
Sir, I'll use your diagnosis to conclude this discussion. That Pakistan is an adversary that is not merely fighting wars, but living off them. And
Absolutely.
that makes it very important that the viewers of this program, I mean, I'm sure they should read your book to try and understand an adversary which is never going to give up, in my opinion. So we need to be prepared, we need to
Yes.
understand, and we need to formulate strategies for the policymakers also. Thank you so much, sir.
Absolutely.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Mike.
And I am told that the book is doing very well, and I am sure that it will do even better, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Maya.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.